Arcade games are kind of awesome. If you're into games as much as I am, this probably seems like a pretty nothing burger statement. Like a chef saying they like salt or a gay bitch saying she fucks with Bjork. But I feel like the bulk of discussion around arcade games kind of end around the time where consoles began to catch up in both power and popularity. In fact, a lot of the games that I want to talk about have since had console releases that kind of supersede the popularity of the original arcade releases. Plus, everyone and their third removed uncle knows Pac-Man. So I can't really blame people for not wanting to talk about games like Dr. Pepper's Soda Slam DX or Family Guy Bowling. However, I think the lack of discussion on the less impactful arcade games is missing the forest for the very brightly colored neon trees that take 20 tickets. That's so much. What the hell? And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of certified arcade stinkers which get delegated to the back rooms of your local bowling alley. But there's still plenty of actually good and interesting arcade games out there that I would like to talk about. I would like to say, however, this isn't a comprehensive list of every good arcade game, as I think I'd be dead before I could even reach Smurfs Gold Champs Soccer. So this is kind of just a loosely connected grab bags of games I found worth talking about. I also won't be able to speak much on the gameplay of most of these games, as I live out in the middle of bumfuck Florida, so the only arcade games we have are Mario Kart and poking gators with sticks. Which is actually the first game I want to get into. Mario Kart, not the gators.
The technology that doesn't become a comparison when you're close to WEM company.
It's pretty well known that during the time of the 5th gen console wars, Nintendo were getting their balls absolutely busted by Sony, with the PS1 selling more than double the amount of the N64, which kinda makes sense. Nothing personal, I'm sure the N64 has a great personality, but something about playing its library makes me feel like I'm in the bad side of Toontown. So naturally, near the time of the GameCube's release, Nintendo was pulling whatever strings they could to ensure sales, like the iconic Who Are You campaign. More importantly, one of these tactics was to enlist both the help of Sega and Namco to help create the Triforce arcade system, which was a cost-effective arcade architecture very closely based off the GameCube, as to make porting arcade games to the console easier. Funnily enough though, only one of the 5 games that were made with Triforce were ever re-released onto consoles, that being F-Zero. I'm honestly surprised that Super Monkey Ball wasn't made with this architecture, as it was a defining arcade port on the GameCube, but I digress. Out of the 5 games that were developed, Avalon no Kagi, F-Zero AX, Mario Kart Arcade GP 1 and 2, and Virtua Striker 4, Mario Kart would be the only one to get any direct sequels, with the most recent iteration still up at most arcades, as it's the one that I've played the most. It makes sense, Mario Kart itself already has a perfect formula for an arcade game. You can get better, but there's always going to be some level of random bullshit that'll make you lose, like every good arcade game.
Thank you, twice the fun.
Just add a million different items and you're as good as gold. Golden mushroom, that is. What? Come on! Also, Pac-Man's here. He's kinda making me uncomfortable. He keeps referring to me as one of those gendered confused types, whatever that means. Harassment aside, I actually love the Mario Kart arcade games. I'm a little biased, as Mario Kart Double D's is my favorite Mario Kart, but I feel like the GameCube library has a level of spunk and charm no other console has been able to recreate, and Mario Kart GP is no different. The course design in these games are such a treat. They feel less like racetracks and more like amusement park rides, which allow them to be a lot more colorful and visually creative, if not a little bland when it comes to the actual layout of the roads. Even still, I'd still like to see these Mario Kart tracks come back in a later game. However, that is only if Nintendo ever decides to grow the fuck up. Another feature of these games worth noting is pre-recorded commentary, chiming in whenever someone gets hit by an item or whenever you pass someone.
Mario, shoot the square tire. Bowser, tires are now squared. Mario picks up points in one stretch. Mario, tires are now squared.
And while some people may find the decision to have some random guy enthusiastically yell at you during the entire game annoying, I personally could not be more overjoyed with the decision. I think that's why I gravitate so much toward these games. I mean this in the nicest way, but a lot of arcade games kind of lack any sort of decency and restraint that console games have. They're not afraid to shove a bunch of flashing lights on screen, yell at you to play, and spend all your parents' hard-earned money. I really hope that one day Nintendo does try to re-release these games in some way. Even if it's poorly done and overexpensive, it's a shame these games are left to be forgotten just because they're arcade releases. That being said, there's some ways to play these games if you do feel so inclined, but you didn't hear that from me.
Other than F-Zero, there is technically another Nintendo arcade game that has gotten a home release. Well, kinda.
And that game is Rhythm Tengoku, or here in America, Rhythm Heaven. I don't think a lot of people know that this series even had an arcade game, and that's probably because it's basically the GBA game just with some extra modes, games, and slightly better graphics. So honestly, there's not much to talk about. I do love the design of the arcade cabinet though. Because the mini games are taken directly from the GBA, the cabinet just has two big as hell D-pads and A and B buttons. It's really cute. Man, rhythm games are so cool. Wait, I forgot to talk about the characters of Mario Kart GP! Because it was developed by Namco, they are able to sneak in some of their own characters under Nintendo's nose, like the before mentioned Pac-Man, who now won't stop looking at me. They even got Maimichi up in this bitch, who I'm pretty sure lied on their driver's exam. I don't know. I don't think I trust them driving a car.
What's your naked girls?
And they also have this weird little drum guy who looks really familiar. I could have sworn I've seen him from somewhere. Oh yeah! He's the mascot to literally my favorite rhythm game ever, Taiko no Tatsujin. Don't know how that slipped my mind. I think Pac-Man slipped something in my drink.
今度の太鼓の達人は RPG? 仲間と一緒に
Surprise, bitches! This video was just an excuse for me to talk about this game. Taiko no Tatsujin is a very simple rhythm game, only needing two inputs. If the note is red, hit the middle of the drum. If the note is blue, hit the side. Absolute baby sauce levels of complexity. Sometimes they spice it up by making you drum really fast, and other times you have to drum a lot. And maybe even sometimes, when they're getting real silly, they decide to make you drum really fast and a lot. It's so fun, I love it. The simplicity of the controls really let them get away with some absolute batshit charts in the higher difficulties, which take a master degree just to even deduce what the hell is going on. Footage of the first Taiko arcade game released in 2001 is pretty hard to find, but maybe I'm just stupid and don't know how to do research. It doesn't really matter, though, because Namco was pumping these bad boys out like Scientologists passing out pamphlets at a cosplay convention, with a new game coming out every year, and by the third installment they are ready to test the waters out in the West, under the name Wadiko 3, which, if you ask me, is a pretty shitty witness protection name. Sadly, the Western release didn't get that much attention, so only 3 or 4 of these arcade games are known to even exist. Serious thanks to the good folks at Digital Game Museum. It's because of them that we even have pictures of these cabinets, or even know of their existence. The Western design of the cabinet actually has a changed design for the mascot, Dun-chan, giving them slightly smaller and wider apart eyes, which look a lot closer to how they look now, and thank God, because these original designs scare the shit out of me. That same year, in 2002, Taiko got its first of many home releases in Japan for the PS2. The gameplay remained almost entirely unchanged, but now it came with a little drum controller, which I find really cute. It wasn't until 2004 that the West were blessed with a release of Taiko no Tatsujin, also on the PS2, under the name Taiko Drum Master. Most of the songs from the Japanese release were changed to popular Western bands like Queen, Madonna, and Jimmy Neutron. I'm really glad that they kept the soundtrack to the new games intact. I would take a Japanese song I don't understand over Imagine Dragons any day. In 2011, they released the 15th Taiko arcade machine, simply called Taiko no Tatsujin, which to this day is the most recent iteration. The game also introduced a brand new feature, Namco's Ban a Passport card, which allows players to dress Don-chan in funny little costumes and save their high scores. I really like the idea of having a card being able to store your player data. It allows players to have an extra level of personalization other than seeing what cuss words you could spell using 3 letters. I tried to see what other games use this card, but all I could turn up was a racing game called Wangan Midnight. Wangan Midnight? I use my wang during the day too. Oh, come on, that was funny. Speaking of Taiko, did you know that there's an honest to God Taiko no Tatsujin cabinet? And every Yakuza entry has some version of Sega Arcade which you could go to spend your hard-earned cash. It's one of the many things that you could do where, if you're like me, ignore the story of the games for hours and do random bullshit like fishing and fighting babies. All of the Sega arcades are equipped with claw machines and dart games, but most importantly, old Sega arcade games. They have the classics, of course, Outrun, Fantasy Zone, and some lesser known games like Sonic the Fighters. But as time went on, you were able to play newer and actually good games, like Puyo Puyo and the aforementioned Taiko no Tatsujin. Wait, no, that's the wrong footage, sorry. Quick side tangent though, why isn't Super Monkey Ball in any Yakuza games? The guy who made Yakuza, Toshihiro Nagoshi, is also the creator of Super Monkey Ball. Speaking of, did you know that the original Monkey Ball arcade game was made because of one of Sega's CEOs complaining that games were too expensive to make now? And naturally, Toshihiro's response to this was to make a game that only needed a single joystick to control. A banana joystick, that is. And while not being that popular in Japan, it was a huge success in the West, because Westerners love monkeys. As cited directly from the Wiki article, the CEO was impressed, assuming that Nagoshi had the Western market in mind, while Nagoshi didn't at all. You're telling me that this guy made one of the best arcade games of all time out of pure spite, and he has the audacity to not include it in his flagship title? I don't care about Virtua Fighter. I need my monkeys. Maybe he's just too cool for Super Monkey Ball now. I don't know. Tangent aside, Puyo Puyo and Outrun aren't the only playable arcade games, as there's also Yakuza exclusive games, such as Boxelios, which is your run-of-the-mill side arcade shmup, which is short, of course, for Short Muppets. Toilets, a game where you play by pissing at a urinal, and Mesu King Battle Bug Beauties, where you battle with, beetles. That last one is the only one based off a real arcade title called Mushu King the King of Beetles, which is a card collecting game where you play rock, paper, scissors with beetles. The series also had an LCD handheld that coexisted with it, designed by Masahiro Sakurai. Girl, what are you doing here? Get your ass back to Nintendo. We need a new Meteos game. Wait, did I say only one of those were based off a real life game? Silly me. I meant to say two of them are real. The urinal arcade game is real. Just like in Yakuza, in order to play, you have to have a literal pissing competition with another player, aka whoever decides to stand next to you. It's already bad enough that I'm uncomfortable because there's a stranger watching me piss, but now I have to be humiliated as well because I can't piss hard enough. Not to mention, advertisements could be uploaded via USB drive by the store owners. So now I'm uncomfortable, humiliated, and a victim of capitalism. My life is a joke. The only thing that could make me feel better now is an obscure port of a Valve game. No, not you. Oh my god! Hi, Half-Life 2 Survivor! Hi!
So wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Released exclusively in Japan, Half-Life 2 Survivor was an arcade shooter, but unlike your average on-rail shooter, it's literally just Half-Life 2, so that means you have full 360 movement and aiming. I love how they managed to port the controls over. Much like Rhythm Heaven, Half-Life 2 was not designed to be played on an arcade cabinet, so they had to hodgepodge some solution up, with that solution being two joysticks, one for moving and one for aiming, and two pedals attached to the bottom of the arcade machine, one for jumping and one for shooting, piloting Gordon like a goddamn mech. The game also had the neat feature of allowing you to play with other players from other arcades using the online feature, which I've never seen in another arcade game. Gameplay wise, at least from what I could tell without playing it, you kinda just play through the campaign of Half-Life 2, but now it has really tacky, colorful effects and big-ass UI grafted onto your screen. This is beautiful to me. This is art. If any coders are watching this video, I am begging you to make a mod for Half-Life 2 that adds all this junk. I don't have any money, but I could give you a big kiss as a reward for your efforts. Speaking of arcade ports, Parappa the Rapper's cooler stepsister, Jammer Lammy, also had an arcade port. Cheap plastic guitar and all. I really love this cabinet design. It teeters right on the line between Nickelodeon Hotel and one of those fake controllers for babies. I guess now is a pretty good time to talk about the design of arcade cabinets. One of my favorite things about arcade games is their physicality. Games have become progressively more and more intangible. Cartridges became discs, became files, became vapor. There's a feeling of hollow convenience that comes with loading up a game that's just downloaded on the hard drive of the console. Like, the game I just loaded doesn't mean anything. It has no physical ties to this world, therefore it holds no sense of self, no sense of belonging. In a way, these games get to circumvent death by never living at all. I think that's why arcade games are so important. They're allowed that sense of self. They're allowed intentionality. Am I getting too emotional over silly games designed specifically so I waste my money? Maybe, but I dare you to look at this and try not to get sentimental. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is that a lot of arcade games get to be weird, and that's what makes them beautiful to me. Like the Sega Sonic Popcorn Shop, which is a popcorn dispenser with a little minigame attached. This counts as an arcade game, fuck you. We have Chochibuda Geishi, a game that is played entirely by banging and flipping a fake table, really making you feel like an alcoholic stepdad. Or, who could forget, the banana joystick. You have this pretty recent Kirby game where you need to slam balls into his gaping gullet, Hungry Hungry Hippo style. These games remind me of the DS and Wii era, where every game publisher wanted their game to come with a piece of plastic, or in some cases a baby, in order to make their boxes so much bigger and so much more appealing. Just, oh my god, look at the size of that box. I bet the game is so good. Oh my god. Speaking of, the DS actually had a port of Mushi King that came with the card reader, so you could play with the cards you won at the arcade games. Finally, it could be awesome as fuck at home too. The sad reality, and the honest one I wanted to ignore, is that arcade games are kind of a dying art. Well, at least good ones. In 2022, Sega pulled out of their more than 50-year-long arcade business, selling to an arcade company called Genda Inc. And this decline isn't anything new. Ever since the early 2000s, arcades have been slowly dwindling and are now a former shell of what they once were. Most of the arcade games I've mentioned are either extremely hard to find or entirely gone. Efforts like the Digital Game Museum and other game archival edits are a godsend, but there's only so much they could do. Arcade games are expensive and difficult to maintain, so whenever they're no longer seen as profitable, they get scrapped. Consider supporting archival efforts like the Internet Arcade to make sure these games aren't lost to the time. But that's it. If you made it this that's the end of the video. This part is unscripted, but if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Honestly, I don't know if there'll be more videos to come, but if you want, you could subscribe and like. If this video gets enough attention, I will try to make more, but that's not a guaranteed. I kind of just wanted to info dump about some arcade games that I like. So, if you enjoyed, thank you a lot. You can leave a comment saying how you enjoyed it, or if you want to send a death threat, that's okay too. I'll pin it up on my wall with the others. But yeah, thank you for watching. Wait, I forgot to talk about Family Guy Bowling!